My dad's family originally came to the US from France, so my maiden name looks pretty hard to pronounce, and it was even harder to pronounce as a kid. So my dad came up with a way to help me more easily remember it. He used to tell me use the word document, but replace the D with an L, and you get the word locument. It wasn't until I was in high school I took some French history and language classes that I learned it's actually pronounced locument. That was pretty cool, and the classes also taught me a lot about French history and architecture as well. And there are many types of French architecture, and while maybe you think you haven't seen a whole lot of it, it can actually be found from coast to coast across the United States, so your chances are pretty high. I've taken over 3 years of those courses, as well as done extensive research on the topic. So today I will be presenting to you 3 types of different styles of French architecture: the French Baroque, the Romanesque, and the Gothic. The first style of architecture is the French Baroque style. It is also known as a term called Rococo, and that style evolved from the Renaissance architecture, but it added larger theatrics and more drama. It began being used in the 17th century into the early 18th century to show extravagance and wealth and power. An example of that style is the Palace of Versailles. Some of those characteristics include things like large curved forms, complicated shapes, and twisted columns. The Palace of Versailles was built for King Louis XIV and designed by Jules Mansart, an architect of that time. And it homed him as well as many kings after him. And then in 1837, they opened it as a museum, and it is still there today. Now I'm going to move on to the second style of architecture. The Romanesque style of architecture appeared in France in the 10th century, and it was used to build abbeys and monasteries. It combines features from medieval Europe times, and an example of that style is the Abbey of Saint Michel de Thieu. Some of those characteristics include things like round arches and thick pillars, sturdy piers, large towers, and symmetrical plans. The Romanesque style actually evolved later on into the Gothic style, which is my next and final point, is the Gothic style of architecture. The Gothic architecture is a European style. It came from the Romanesque style, and it began being used in France around 1140. The new style flourished, and it began being used to build all the cathedrals and the churches. And it was so popular that it lasted from the 12th century until the 16th century. An example of that style is the famous Notre Dame Cathedral. Some characteristics include things like the pointed arches, the ribbed vaulting, the vaulted ceilings, the use of very heavy stone, clusters of pillars, as well as panes of glass. The construction of the Notre Dame Cathedral actually inspired the author Victor Hugo to publish a book and write the book, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that was published in 1836 or 37, which we later know that got turned into an animated Disney movie in 1996. So in conclusion, there really are many types of architectures in France. Some of them include the 3 that I got to talk to you about today, which were the French Baroque, the Romanesque, and the Gothic styles. And as the 20th century architect Frank Gehry once said, architecture should speak of its time and its place, but it yearns for timelessness.